Hello everyone, hope you're all doing great. I just wanted to share some thoughts with you, and if you want to skip to the stories, it's a few minutes from now, and I'll have the timestamps in the description, because I appreciate not everybody wants to listen to the intros, but if you do, just continue listening. So what I wanted to say is that, remember, a sign that you're doing something right is that you'll have people hating on you or that are jealous of you that won't help you. These might even be people from the past that you've once known, and you might have done nothing wrong to them, and they're just flat out not going to help you when they could. And remember that it's not your fault if this happens. It's just, more than anything, is a sign that you're doing the right thing. It's happened to me countless times where I've extended my hand to help people greatly, and when I need them, even if it's for the most simple thing, more times than not, they're just jealous that you're doing better things than them, so they won't even give you the light of day. But if that happens, like I said, it doesn't matter. You've not done anything wrong, and it's just a sign that you're doing something right. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. And if there's people that aren't going to help you the way you help them, it's just a sign that they're jealous that you're doing something they can't do. You're not in the wrong. And you can literally achieve whatever you want regardless of what anybody's told you. You have so much unique potential, and you just have to believe 100% in yourself, because what's real will always prosper regardless of external circumstances. And lastly, don't put too much time pressure on yourself to achieve things, because this is something that's always made my life a lot harder than it had to be. No matter what happens at the end of the day, I slowly achieve everything I set out to do. Just I might consider things failures if they haven't happened by a set time, but I realised that I was wrong in thinking that, because eventually everything works out how I want it to anyway, and karma always seems to come to those who are good. So just remember that, and that whatever your struggles are, you're not alone in it. Whether it's having a bad day or having mental health issues like I struggle with, there's other people out there in the world that completely understand you and are experiencing very similar things, including myself. I remember the worst feeling was when I first started having the issues, or at least becoming aware of them, and thinking I was the only one experiencing them and things not making sense to me. But the moment I realised that, there's other people that understand, like they're cool and like me, it made my world so much better instantly. So if any of you anywhere are listening to this and experiencing something similar, even if it's just me that you become first aware is similar in that way, remember that you truly aren't alone in your struggles. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. And for myself, I have lots of amazing, unique things I'm working on right now that I can't wait to get out into the world, and they're gonna come soon, so I'm really excited about that. So I hope you're doing great. I love you all, and I'll speak to you all soon. I was in the kitchen the night before last, washing up some plates for dinner, when I glanced out of the window in front of the sink and saw someone standing at the far end of my own yard. From what I could tell, it looks like a man of average build, with a scruffy appearance. He was essentially behind my neighbour's tool shed, which is on the right side of the border of my property, and so I thought that he might be somebody they knew. It was dark and he was quite a distance away, so I couldn't really see what he was doing. His back was mostly turned to me, but by his movements it looked as though he was panting at the ground with a shovel, as if he just buried something and was covering up. This raised my suspicion a bit, so I called my neighbours to ask if they're aware that somebody's behind the shed. They said they're not, and the husband went outside to investigate. I saw my neighbour open his door, and the man saw/heard it and bolts off into the woods. I went outside to meet my neighbour and see if there is evidence of what the man had been doing. So we both arrive at the spot, and I turned to tell my neighbour that I saw a man that fled into the woods. We look down at the ground, and there's indeed fresh dirt where somebody was digging. My neighbour gets a shovel, which the man actually dropped when he ran off, and we start digging nervously. We're both expecting to find out Something very gruesome, no doubt. However, what we dug up has actually left us with more questions than answers. It was a plastic bag with something softball-sized and heavy. We dump out the contents, a rock, painted red with a smiley face. Why would somebody be out here trespassing to bury a painted rock and a button? And it's painted on the rock, not blood. It's not a murder weapon as far as we can tell. Still, the neighbour and I actually report this to law enforcement and they come back to take a statement. They take the rock and button, just in case it's connected to a crime. The whole ordeal has made me on edge, to be honest. Why on earth would somebody bury something like that, especially in the dark? This didn't dawn on me until I had my own children and have hence been vigilant with stranger danger. Suddenly, one day, I sat up and realised the actual danger I was in and how close I come to God knows what. I was about 10 and staying with my grandmother, something I did and loved for a week every holidays. My grandma lived in a new suburb on the outskirts of our city. Because it was new, there were a lot of new immigrants who started moving into the area. There was a wave of immigration from Lebanon due to the war there, asylum seekers. There was a very white Australia at the time, so my 10-year-old mind found those people bizarre and different. Anyway, I was sort of playing by myself with these new kids in the church parking lot near my grandma's. I was the only blonde Anglo out of about 20 kids my age, but they ranged up to about 12. I think that's why I may have been singled out, because I stood out. So this little girl about my age was sort of trying to play with me. She was so foreign to me with her hijab and long black dress in the 40-degree Australian summer, so I blurt out, "Why are you wearing that dress?" I was just confused by it and couldn't understand it. Then, when I look around to see if anyone heard me, I see a man stood there staring at me who's Anglo. I thought at the time he heard me. I was so ashamed and thought that he might come over to speak about my potentially mean comment, or tell my grandma, or even worse, ring my parents. But my 10-year-old head at the time thought that he was watching me from 10 meters away out of annoyance. He's just by a tree line, but he's been there for over 2 or 3 hours. Anyway, it starts getting dark. Everyone started to disperse for bath, dinner and bedtime. I got up and started walking back. The man started to follow me. He followed me to my grandma's and I ran inside and shut and locked the door behind me. I was waiting for his knocks to tell my grandma my crime, but instead, nothing came. He must have changed his mind, I thought to myself, but as I took a sneak peek out of the window, I saw him go down to the side of the house. Oh no, he's gone in the back door to tell her, the shame, for nothing. Oh thank God. Just as I thought I'm about to go to bed and forget about this, I look out the window and there he was, smoking, standing under the tree line. Still weighing up whether to tell my grandma, I kept trying to sneak peeks at him and see if he's gone so I can fall asleep. I decide to go to bed. Now the next morning, my grandma runs in. Now, the fly screen is off of the windows. Now, she thinks I must have done it because they can't fall off on their own. She also said I was not to ever try and force the window open again. Now, all the wood around the windows has been chopped and broken. I said I didn't do it, and she doesn't believe me. She literally doesn't believe me in the slightest. And, you know, I never connected that at the time that it was a man trying to get in. But it must have been, because it was trying to get into my window and I saw him there. I never really thought anything of it. But now I'm an adult, I'm fully aware of what could have happened and it really terrifies me. A stint of warm weather came through our area a few weeks ago, so my family and I decided to hike our local Appalachian trail. We're 25 minutes into our hike when my wife stops abruptly as if she was spooked. With my daughter sitting in her hiking seat attached to my backpack, I slowly shift up in the direction of my wife. What we come across was a large rock off the trail that had been spray painted with a Bible scripture. It read out, Neem Neem Ketul, Usheran, Daniel 5:23-28. The urgent style with the writing and intensity is what unsettled my wife. It was just odd to see this grafted so far off the path, but, however, Appalachia attracts all walks of life. I looked up to the interpretation, and it goes, Meme. God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. You have been weighed in the balances and found waiting and wanting. Your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians. As I'm looking this up, my wife wants to keep walking and starts up the trail. I then hear cracks of branches just behind me. I just kept that interpretation to myself as I know it will really just creep out my wife. Another mile into the trail, I hear the crackle of branches behind us. In the intelligence community, there's a rule of thumb regarding being tracked by a person or car. 1 time it's an accident, 2 coincidence, 3 enemy action. Coincidentally, this is probably what's happening, I think, and it might just be a deer trying to follow us. So I turn around to whatever's making those noises, and in the woods off the trail, I spot what appeared to be a man crouching over messing with something in his bag. But he's whistling to himself. I thought, maybe he's just getting something and don't think much of it. But I knew that the guy had been behind us for quite some time now, because of the first time I heard the sound. Now not even 100 feet further down the trail, yet again, I hear another rustle. 3rd time, I turn 180 degrees. The man's about 20 feet in front of me, adjacent to the trail. I look at him. He doesn't make eye contact, just looks sporadically at different things, from the ground beneath him, to the trees, and then to the sky. While looking to the sky, he says, the days of Babylon are numbered. I reply cold and cynically, are you lost, buddy? And I can feel the adrenaline. My ears are ringing, and my heart is beating double time. Now, I'm starting to think I'll have to defend my family from a lunatic, but he mumbles, giggles, and turns into the woods, never to be seen again. So this happened last summer. It was a hot day, and I just got off work around 7 PM and decided to take my dog for a run in the forest reserve near my home. When you start out on the path, it's very open and near a busy street, but as you go further into the path, you are deep in the forest and surrounded by trees. The sun was starting to set at this point, but I figured I would get a quick 2 miles in so my dog could get some energy out. It was about a mile into my run when I started to hear a man just behind the trees. He hops out of nowhere with a cigarette and says, can you join me on my run? I wonder why this man is behind a tree alone. My heart starts racing, and I realize that it's almost dark, and no one's on the path and there's no cars around in the parking lot. I say no thank you, and continue to run, trying not to look panicked. He starts to get closer to me, and my 1-year-old Staffy pit lunges towards him. My dog is extremely playful and gets excited to see people, so lunges towards him, just wanting to pet him. However, he looks intimidating, so the guy thought he was attacking. He backs up and I start running faster down the path, and I keep looking back. I stopped out of breath and frantically called my fiance who's at work. He didn't answer. I decided I didn't want to go any further down the path and further into the forest, so wait a few minutes and go back with my phone in my hand ready to dial the police. I get to the top of the hill and see the man jumping into the passenger side of a white van, speeding off. I always think to myself, what would have happened if I didn't have my dog with me that day? This incident occurred last spring. Let me set the scene and give a bit of backstory. I was driving from Minnesota to Iowa for a music festival and decided to leave on Thursday because 1. Generally prefer road tripping at night, and 2. I wanted to get to the festival grounds as early as possible to secure a good camping spot. All is going well. I'm about 2 hours away from Des Moines and I realise I've really got to pee. Now for those of you unfamiliar with driving long, mostly rural interstate highways, rest areas can be a godsend when the gas stations are few and far between. So I see a sign for a rest area coming up in 2 miles. Perfect. I pull in and there's maybe 3 other cars in the lot. Things are generally quiet and on the first glance, nothing seems out of the ordinary or anything. However, I have just a general feeling of unease as I pull into the park. And I'm not one to ignore my instinct, but I really have the urge to pee. Luckily, my brother has just given me this taser because he knows I like to go adventures in often wooded areas, usually at night, and he wants me to be safe. So I grab it quick, just in case, and run to the bathroom. Not 30 seconds after I close my stall door, I hear someone yelling either babe or a name. It's unintelligible. Just, they're hollering at me, and I don't know what they're saying, but they sound unstable. At this point, my heart starts beating really fast, and I'm just hoping he leaves the general building, but no, I hear the main door to the woman's stall literally kick open, and of course, he comes to the only stall and starts yelling at me. He finally says something I can make out. I'm looking for my girlfriend. So I say, I don't know you, go away. He then shouts at me, what's my name? The dude's clearly not in the right state of mind. At this point, he starts shaking my freaking stall door. So I turn on the taser and repeat, get out, before hitting the little button that makes the taser do its thing. Luckily, as I hoped, just the sound was enough for him to quickly run out. I stayed there for 10 minutes trying to regain control of my composure, and then quickly walked out to my vehicle, taser ready, and I immediately get out of there. What scares me is he almost knew what the taser sound was to immediately flee like it's happened before. I'm just so glad I had that taser because God knows what would have happened if I didn't have it on me that day. I was playing disc golf, aka frisbee golf, by myself one day, and I lost a disc in the woods. As I was looking for it, I heard a woman yell, "You're crazy," and a guy responded with something to, "You're supposed to keep your heart open." How is this keeping your heart open? They're on the path on the other side of the trees, and the woman's walking away from the guy. I heard someone walking through the woods towards me. It was a guy. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "Hey, you're Luke, aren't you?" And I said nah, and said my actual name for some reason. He shook my hand and said, "What are you doing?" "Listening." I told him, "No, I'm looking for a disc." He was like, "Oh, you're a disc golfer, huh?" He said something along them lines, but I didn't really know what to make of it. Then he looked me in the eyes and calmly said, "You're screwed. You don't even know it. We know too much and you're screwed." It's at this point I turned, walked away, and never come back again. I've never been to that park again since.